Awesome.
So, welcome to the Clickbait Podcast, the YouTube show that is only crime is perhaps having cared too much.
I'm Chris. I'm still alive. Are you?
I'm still alive. Not everyone is. There's dead people. So we're just going to call this Season 2.
Sure.
Let's just pretend that there was always supposed to be a break after the 10th.
Hey, Walking Dead does mid-season breaks. Come on, guys. Did we do 10? Is that when we stopped?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I think it was 10.
Well, that's almost intentional.
Seems like it would be, except for the fact that I just broadcasted that it was in fact not intentional.
Oh.
But in case there was ever any fucking doubt, this is actually not our day jobs.
Should we start from the top?
Those of you who are telling us to not quit our day jobs, way fucking ahead of you.
Yeah, I'm still doing mine anyway. Still going to school there, Kevin?
No, I'm not going to school, but I am working, and...
So just your daydreams, you've quit. Day aspirations.
Yeah. My plans for the future I have given up on.
All right.
So we've had some technical difficulties. We're back on track now, at least for the time being. Hopefully this all turns out okay. And this is a time for a little bit of America. So this is what I like to call hardship beer, because money is running fucking low.
But it's got a crown.
It does have a crown on it, but it also says it's also called America, which
just so you're saying it's an allegory for modern day America. Struggling on rough times.
Right.
Economic downturn.
It's a democracy with a totalitarian flavor.
Oh. Is that what that was?
I don't know. I'm just
tastes like mass graves.
Just making this shit up. So, election round 2. In case you guys are...
some things have changed since we last were on the case.
No, they really haven't.
Some things have come to their inevitable conclusion since the last time we were on the case.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, it was always headed this way, I think.
That seems like well, I mean, I guess you would say like the Trump nomination was pretty surprising from like where we started many months ago, but
yeah, I don't know. And that's interesting in retrospect, because it's like I try to think about did I foresee this at all, or because I don't know. I like to think that I always felt that it was legitimately possible. Yeah,
I feel like no. I feel like no one saw that. I think once we realized that maybe Bernie Sanders was getting the attention he was getting, it seemed possible that another anti-establishment candidate could be also getting that same attention.
Yeah.
But I kind of just...
I feel like whether or not we did see the signs, we fucking should have.
Sure. I just assumed whatever signs we were seeing would be overshadowed by ineptitude and like just inability to maintain his tongue.
I feel like, and this again, this is hindsight's 2020, but I feel like pretty soon on after like the 5th batshit fucking thing that Donald Trump said, or that everybody thought was going to destroy his campaign,
and it didn't, right.
And it made it stronger.
Right.
I kind of thought, you know what, this
could be a thing that could happen.
This is going to happen.
All right.
So there's that, and
they should all got on that.
In case any of you missed the car fire last week, that was.
If you did miss last week's, don't worry. There's another one this week.
There's another one this week too. Although, I don't know. I would kind of like to talk about a little bit about the sort of dynamic on the Democratic side.
It does seem a little more nuanced and healthy, I guess, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, I do. Well, healthy.
Yeah.
That depends on the outcomes that everybody's drawing. And I'll say this as a preface, and then I'll maybe come back to it before we get to the end of the program, but I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned here.
Right.
That no one seems to really be learning.
That does seem to be a thing. Well, and I mean, I don't know if
I
we
think
want
on
to
both sides, actually.
get right into it, but like with like the whole thing with Debbie Wasserman Schultz or whatever. I don't understand. I don't understand how you can take what was so obviously like a political and social pariah at that point after the emails got released. And you're in this delicate position.
Fire her and then
hire her as your campaign like high ups, and think that that's going to fly in any other way except for people getting very angry. It's because I mean, granted, there's going to be tons of people who don't really give a fuck, but then there's also there was already people who were doing the burn your bus thing,
right?
And to do that is almost just to antagonize that group of people who
I think there's a lot of people that think that that Tim Kaine as vice presidential choice was a big fuck you to liberals, saying, you know, basically, I don't need your fucking votes or whatever. I slightly disagree, but making Debbie Wasserman Schultz your honorary chair of the Democratic Party
definitely seemed like a fuck you
to liberals.
It's good. So if the nuance of the first wasn't
so who
properly, I'm kind of okay with just letting the system burn down. Really? See what happens. I mean, I guess I gotta. I realistically, like practical terms, I guess I gotta go for kick the can down the road a little longer and hope that things will get better next time. But I also see like I mean, our system is built to resist that sort of change, as we've well established by this point, even with like a massive upswell of interest.
There's sort of an interesting dynamic to a lot of the stuff that we've been seeing lately. So with the email leaks and things like that from the DNC, which confirmed almost precisely
right
what Bernie Sanders was saying from the beginning,
right?
And to be honest with you, I get it. It's a lot milder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't read obviously all of them, but any summaries that I've read of the majority, of course, that was granted what they put down in electronic digital form to be sent around. I imagine there could be a lot more discussions going on either in private or on the phone or stuff like that. It's like
we're living in that era where you have a bunch of politicians that don't realize that everything that they do is being watched.
Right.
Like they don't understand that the internet exists.
It's kind of adorable. It is. And if they do understand it, they don't quite understand what it can do.
Yeah.
It seems like.
Except for Hillary. Hillary deleted those 60,000 emails or whatever.
Well done. Which I was
makes me think that, you know, she probably wasn't too involved in the DNC thing, if we're to be honest.
Yeah, well, and, I mean, but that's even to that point. The system is set up to where I don't think she needed to be involved in that.
I don't think she did either.
Thing. That was
not personally. Now, was it unspoken? I think there's no doubt, because I mean, when the head of the DNC is the former head of the committee to elect one of the candidates, and she, like, to be perfectly honest, she never really, well, I don't want to say that she never hid, because she did deny.
Yeah, but she certainly never did any outward thing to dissuade that. She might have.
Right. She was just basically kind of a.
She's like, nah, I didn't do that.
Piece of crap.
I didn't trip that girl as I stick my foot out and trip another little girl. That's crazy, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So I mean, it was very much the like assumed thing. I think it's always different when you get factual confirmation of your presumed biases that you just assume that everyone has, and you're like, oh right, we weren't crazy, like, and everyone who said we were crazy, we weren't, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting setup there, and then to go from that and then to say like, okay, well, that was a fucked up thing, and it's already got a lot of people stirred up, and there were already people who stirred up just to begin with.
Yeah.
To bring that on board, it does seem like, yeah, fuck you, I guess.
Yeah.
Which to me seems kind of. I mean, do you think that she's just relying on the fact that it's bad enough on the other side that people aren't going to go? See, I have like very, very two minds about this situation here, because part of me thinks that our system is built so far to resist any sort of change that, you know, maybe you do just gotta fucking burn it all down first and see what happens.
I have concerns about that.
And that worries me too, but also what worries me is not giving the wrong message too of like, oh well, you could do all this shit and it just won't matter because you're still gonna win. Like, so where's the middle ground there? I guess my hope was that if it was apparent that the Democratic parties were going to be split, that all the people who were threatening to split the Republican Party would do the same.
Right.
But because it seemed like there was going to be a semi-unified front.
There's going to be definitely a unified front from the conservative standpoint. Which, by the way, hats off to Ted Cruz for announcing his 2020 candidacy for president.
Yeah, that was.
And also, hats off to Ted Cruz for announcing that he has no future in politics.
so killing his 2020.
Right, exactly.
The one time that I've respected Ted Cruz, I guess, I don't know.
But
maybe
he lost all respect with the Republican base at that point.
He couldn't. Maybe he'll go. Maybe he'll go Green Party.
The Republican base is really going to have to do some soul searching, and they're really going to have to come around to accept that this is the Republican Party that they've been creating since Richard Nixon.
Sure, yeah, it's
even before. I mean, to be perfectly honest, but I mean, like, it was most blatant with Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon, of course, initiating the war on drugs so that he could criminalize being a hippie or black.
Right. Those are terrible things to be.
Right, and then. And that like the Southern strategy and like the sort of veiled racism that went through the 70s and the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah.
And then I think there was at a point it was so shrouded. In the early 2000s, the racism and everything was so shrouded in doublespeak and so on and so forth in the 2000s that I think
we kind of forgot about it.
We thought that maybe it was gone, but then now I think, the truth is that wing of, or that underbelly of the Republican Party has been there as far as I'm concerned, and like it's been suppressed, right?
Sure.
And then so we've had.
I go even further to say that, I mean, granted, it wasn't necessarily policy on the Democratic side, but just the underbelly of politics seems to represent that with the laws and stuff that were passed, especially during the war on drugs and criminalization of crack and stuff like that, to a point.
And I am trying to make a fucking point here, so.
Right. Go ahead. Republicans are bad.
No, actually, I kind of got like a little. I want to tie this into sort of a little bit more because I've been sort of studying up a little bit on like theories of like social movements and revolution and so on and so forth. And it's really interesting because if you look at like political studies that look at the conditions around uprisings, social uprisings, and social movements and things like that, that they tend to come around when there is a loosening of sort of or where there is some sort of a facilitator, right? So with the Trump revolution, or whatever you want to call it, you have the rise of the strongman, which is, let's be honest, that's what a lot of the American population, both Democrat and Republican, have wanted for a really long time. And I think
they have been kind of legislating that way, haven't they?
Yeah, and well, I mean, I don't want to sound alarmist about like presidential powers or whatever. I think
but it is true. We have been eroding the controls on presidential powers for quite a while now, and we've been looking for.
Like, what do you mean? Like,
things like president not being able to declare war. We've pretty much allowed presidents to declare war.
Yeah,
now.
okay, yeah, right,
They've been eroding the controls that were in place to prevent more presidential power being congregated in one man.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I think the sentiment of a strongman, though, has been like an undercurrent throughout American politics. So, for example, like consider the fact that that Congress or whatever is supposed to be the arm dedicated to the people, right?
Right.
They're supposed to be the human elected representatives of the constituency, right? And then basically the president's supposed to be the commander-in-chief or whatever, but we have, for a really long time, we've focused solely on the presidential elections, which is why...
Right, we don't pay attention to any of the other
Which is
elections.
why Democrats do really, really terrible in off-year elections.
Right.
So, like, there's some statistic, and I can't remember it. I didn't write it down, and my computer's not really helping me much today. But there is a trend that, like, during off-year elections, Democrats lose control in Congress and the Senate, like, badly.
Interesting.
On a consistent basis. Like, if people aren't voting for the president, the only people that are voting are, you know, like
the people, the hardline people,
like the radicals, right? So,
yep.
Which kind of, I think we've talked a little bit about how voting is sort of
and usually activity. And maybe this is just my perception, but usually the radicals motivated by more of the negative emotions, rather than the radicals motivated by like liberty and hope and change and stuff, because that's not a thing you can rally behind on a consistent basis.
Fear motivates
across a lot,
especially old people. It motivates old people a lot.
This fucker's gotta die. This fucker's gotta die off.
They will pretty soon on their own. It'll happen naturally. But I mean, like, what the fuck was my point? So like, they've got their strongman, and their strongman is, you know, he's standing up for, you know, just coming out and being, you know, as racist as you want to be. And it felt like for a while there was sort of like, I don't want to say like a social contract or whatever. It was like starting kind of in the 80s, and maybe even like the late 70s, there was sort of a move that I perceived that, you know, whatever was going on under the surface, people were going to try really hard not to be sort of outwardly racist and misogynist and right.
There was a decorum to keep.
There was a decorum,
at least in public.
And I think it on the side of liberals, I think it was fairly earnest. Mistakes have been made, right? But
yeah, I mean, I'm gonna guess it depends on what it's like. Because I certainly don't think there's a Democrat is specifically a liberal, but I think I get what you're saying. Like
I kind of did the thing where we sort of like transposed the idea of Democrat and liberal, which is I should know better than, because I am a liberal independent. So
right, which most true liberals seem to be gravitating towards more
Democrats
and more often.
And Republicans are both full of shit.
Exactly,
as far as I'm concerned. But like as soon as Trump came along and gave social permission for, the expression of outwardly, racist comments and
outwardly authoritarian,
outwardly authoritarian and he's basically granting the people that have always sort of, or I say always, that's a slippery fucking slope too, because I don't think that we have like this inherent group of people that has always
just been waiting for this moment.
I think we've created it. And by the way, I think that Democrats and liberals have created it. And I'll explain that here in just a little bit.
Please do. Shut up.
Well, or at least that's my guess at this point. I don't know for sure. So that's what I was kind of talking about when I was saying, that I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned, but I don't think we're quite...
Anyone's really paying attention.
Yeah, we're not paying attention to the right stuff. So we're still in this process of demonizing Trump supporters and not really trying to understand the root causes.
Trump supporters. Well, right. It can get rather confusing because I've heard Trump supporters quote Bernie Sanders thinking it was Donald Trump, which was hilarious. But so they were asked why they were supporting Donald Trump, and they were like, "Well, he stands for this and this and this," and there were Bernie Sanders quotes.
Doesn't.
and so it was
not the same at all.
It was kind of fascinating. So I think what really
and Melania, she quoted Michelle Obama.
Right. I think what it really stands for isn't so much necessarily. It stands for. Well, you got that anti-establishment kind of bent on things that are going right nowadays, but then you also have like the childishness of like the legislative branch and its inability to get anything done whatsoever. Yeah. And when you don't have them to hold in check and to make up their end.
That Donald Trump is doing, if I'm to give him credit on anything, is that he's bringing out that childishness. He's like, it's on fucking
full display.
Parade.
Yeah, definitely.
At this point in time, and so I think a lot of people are seeing that for the first time.
Well, yeah, because most people don't listen to like fucking like C-SPAN, and most people don't check out Congressional Dish and stuff like that, and they're not paying attention to the way that these people are really acting behind the scenes. But they're fucking children, and they're incapable of doing anything, more or less, unless it serves some sort of
personal.
Everyone can kind of agree that it works.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, so if you don't have that, that branch is falling short, then what else do you have but like the rise of kind of the strength in another branch, the authoritarian, the strong man? You gotta have something to make up the difference.
And yeah, exactly, because we have, we have seen Congress and the Senate and the House just become so cartoonishly ineffectual.
Right. I mean, it's literally just a joke now.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people that are like, well, fuck Congress. If they're not going to do anything, then we'll
do an end run around them.
We'll elect a strongman. I think that's scary. I don't think that should
it's kind of interesting because it's like I'll do that. I'll devote my attention to this one race, but I'm not going to devote my attention to the multiple times that these people come up for re-election and make sure that better people get into office. It's kind of there's got to be like, it'd be fascinating to run like psychological studies on that. Like, what is that I mean, I guess it is really just you can pay attention to one thing for a brief amount of time and care about a whole lot, and kind of invest all your thoughts and hopes into that. But to do that on a long enough span is kind of why the NRA always succeeds versus anyone else, because they're there with that singular purpose to get that shit done.
That's true, yeah.
And it's just not feasible for
that's a
people.
Really good argument, I think, against lobbying, period.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and that most certainly
I think
should be.
To be honest, and this is one of the reasons why I sort of consider myself to be a bit of a radical, is that I think that that business should have absolutely no power whatsoever within government.
No, I
should be
fully agree.
There should be that. Like a separation of church and state, and a separation of business and state.
No, honestly, I don't think that's in any. I think that's
probably overkill. Yeah. But
maybe I don't know.
Well, okay. Here's my deal. Okay, if we really want to say that corporations are people, right?
Right.
They get one vote.
Well, yeah, they certainly should.
Because a corporation can invest both technically and legally. They can invest a lot more fucking money than I can.
Well, and not even an American corporation necessarily.
Right, exactly.
I mean, you can have competing interests.
That's the thing that's always gotten me, is that there are no caps on what a corporation can spend.
That really should be the issue. Is maybe it shouldn't be that there's no
there's
interaction, but there should be a cap on that interaction.
There's an absolute cap of like $10,000 or something for individuals to contribute.
Right.
So like, why isn't there a cap of $10,000 that corporations
for that one person?
And a lot of that has to do with, you know, tax
rules. And they wrote the rules and they made it to where they can obscure most of what they're doing.
I mean, if a company gives money to a PAC, they're not technically donating it to the candidate, right? Which is what Citizens United was kind of all about.
The same thing as that issue with the IRS when they were investigating like the Tea Party groups, as they should have been investigating the Tea Party groups, because they were political groups that were making claims of, you know, tax exempt status, but they're all doing it in a way that it's just obscured to where you really can't.
Yeah, they weren't actually nonprofits, you know, they weren't
exactly, and none of these that claim to be that is
C3 or whatever, 501c4s or something like that.
Right.
Tax exempt status. Yeah. So I think we should fix that.
Yeah, well, I mean, and here's the thing. What else can you fix without that being fixed? Is kind of a valid question, because I don't think no matter what, that's going to put like that finger on the scale. That's going to
because
tilt the balance.
Like I repeat this a lot. Like the continual statistic is that between 80 and 95% of the American population, including among NRA members, believes that there should be some sort of common sense gun legislation, right?
Yeah, right. It's just like fucking 10% that have all day and night and all their money.
And yet we can never introduce that legislation, and that's the clearest indication, like one of the most blatant indications to me that you know, it's broken. Well, and see, so that's my argument right there. Is while I do agree that like maintaining the status quo is far better in the short term to allowing fucking the system just to like fucking capsize and destroy itself with a Donald Trump presidency, which it surely would. I mean, I can't imagine like that the day after that happens, people wake up and they're not fucking sobered by that experience. Yeah.
And be like, what the fuck just happened?
Right, like when everybody woke up after Brexit.
Right. And they're like, whoa.
What the fuck?
And granted, like on that end, maybe that's going to end up being a good thing in the long term. Yeah. I don't know enough about that. There's the trade policies of like fucking the EU to really like go into whether or not I think that was a good idea or a bad idea. Obviously, it was a massive change, and that always brings strife. Yeah,
and it's really interesting because it looks to be very similar to what's going on here from my perspective, and not in the fact that like it's a rise, necessarily just a rise of like xenophobia and like anti-Semitism and racism and all that sort of stuff. Which those things are a part of it, right? And those things are a part of Trump. But like, the few educated people that I've heard talking about Brexit are always sort of alluding to there's more to it, because there was a strong liberal component to the population that voted for Brexit.
Well, same thing with. Go ahead.
So it's like everybody, like the mainstream narrative is really that it's just the xenophobia, it's just this one group of people, and we're demonizing that group of people, but it's not.
It's a systemic problem.
There's something bigger working there. And for me, I think in the United States, the rise of Trump, and I think it's also something that's contributed to the rise of somebody like Bernie Sanders, only I think in different flavors.
I completely agree with that. I think that it's
there's like neoliberal policies, which and not like, because that word gets overused a lot. Like what I'm talking about is like neoliberal economic policies, which is sort of like the Democrat-friendly brand of like Reaganomics,
right?
Which is subsidize, deregulate, and pro-business all the way. Like that those members of Congress that subscribe to neoliberal economic policy are very, very much geared toward lubricating the tracks for for business.
Right.
Right. And in the idea that business improves and that improves the quality of life for everybody else. Except for the fact that it fucking doesn't. And we have a lot of evidence at this point.
Latin America.
We have, yeah, right, Latin America. We have a lot of evidence in this country alone, though, to prove that sort of strategy, what it really does is it's a regressive economic policy that funnels money from people who, by definition, don't have it to those who do.
Who already do, yeah, right.
Right.
Which does not... And has not since the beginning of time actually been a sustainable practice. It always leads, and maybe there is no sustainable practice, but
and I don't mean this in a disparaging way at all, but you have a really poorly educated population, particularly in the South. I went to Arkansas last month, and I got to tell you, man, I've never been happier to be back in Kansas.
Oh, we just lost our one Arkansas viewer. Go ahead.
I'm the one Arkansas viewer.
Oh, right. Well, we just gained our one Arkansas viewer back.
But yeah, I mean, because contextually, I noticed the difference between the lives of the people down there and the lives of the people here. You know, Lawrence is a liberal bubble, right? But it's a bubble that looks outward. It looks to the future, right? It tries to be inclusive. And, you know, when I was down visiting my family, I noticed, there aren't really any towns. Okay, let me tell this story. I've told this story a lot of fucking times to anybody who will listen, but... So I went down to, I've had some family who's passed away recently. So we went down to sort of visit with the family that remains, and because the funeral had already passed and everything, and we went to, you know, pay our respects at the cemetery and all that sort of stuff. And while I was there, I walked to the back of the cemetery, and I'd never noticed that this was a common practice before, but on the backs of headstones are the family names, right? In that whole cemetery, 4 last names. Whoa,
that's crazy.
4 last names. All of them related to me in some fashion. All of them related to my family in some fashion. Weird. So, and you can make all the inbreeding jokes you want.
And we will.
Because it's Arkansas, although I've never actually seen any evidence of inbreeding at the time. I don't know. But anyway, but
carries down on generations.
But that sort of really was a revelation about the sense of the communities that arise in the rural South.
Focused towards these close-knit groups.
It's their clans. Yeah, everyone that you know, you're probably related to in some fashion. And if you meet somebody that you're not related to, you're probably going to marry that person.
Right.
And you're going to have kids, and then and
you're not going to move,
and then you're going to end up with one of those 4 last names again. Right. And so everything is so small. The outlook of the people is a bubble that looks only inward. Right. So I think that's philosophically and metaphysically, that's a whole different fucking way to grow up, right? And
certainly. I mean,
I think that frames your worldview differently, and I can't necessarily demonize people for that, and top that off with Vice did this fairly great piece where they had a guy who was like a hip hop artist and an English professor or something like that who was following around. He was a black guy who was walking around on the Trump campaign trail, and he was visiting with people, and he kept on asking people why they were voting for Trump, and it was jobs, because every single one of these people was part of a community that had been utterly destroyed by the fact that whatever was keeping their town or their particular area alive whatever manufacturing
was
base that
shipped
was shipped overseas.
Right.
And that's largely a part of Clinton politics. I mean, let's be real. I mean, that was
and it's to be fair, I'm sure it is largely part of
every
Trump's practice too. If Trump had the office too, I don't think any of that would change.
No, I don't.
But it's off message for what he's you know. If you go to the kind of xenophobic isolationist route, you just assume that includes we're going to bring our manufacturing jobs here, but that's not how that works. There's too much money going on. And I mean, anything that Trump has done in practice as a businessman has been towards that end. It's not been, I'm going to keep jobs in America. Did you hear that?
Okay, so you remember the girls that did the America song and dance?
Oh, yeah, they're suing Donald Trump.
Yeah, they're suing him because he didn't pay them. And everyone seems surprised except fucking me.
Yeah, no, well, dude, have you seen his track record for that shit? And the hotel too.
And there's because back when he first started running, I started doing a lot of research into his character, his previous business dealings or whatever, and I ran across a couple of interviews with people that just lived in New York in the 80s, and every single person that they knew, their family and every single person that they knew had been involved in some sort of a Trump construction project, and then Trump gets done with the construction project, and then he files for bankruptcy so that he doesn't have to pay his contractors.
Right.
And then his contractors are left footing the bill, but they're not. They can't pull it. Yeah. So he's putting thousands and thousands and thousands of people out of work.
Yep, but jobs
every single time.
Jobs. Right? Yeah. No. Definitely. Yeah, and it's definitely a pattern of behavior. I mean, same thing with the. I was listening to someone trying to kind of do an examination on whether he's truly racist or just playing towards the, kind of more isolationist.
Do you think it matters?
No, not anymore. I do think that there is some history there. I think that's an
interesting question. I don't know if there's an answer to it, but I think that's a really interesting question as to whether or not. Well, first off, is he really racist?
Well, we've had tons of racist presidents before. I mean,
does it matter? Because he's playing on these particular sentiments.
It's not. Yeah. See, to me, it's doesn't really matter what goes on in Trump's mind.
Is he really racist, or is he just playing the racist guitar? And
there's still people coming to dance. That's all that matters.
Exactly. He's still getting people excited, and so it's super hard to blame someone.
Well, none of our politics, any of our politicians,
and yet it seems like that's all we're doing right now.
Well, that's what we do. We focus on the moral and the character of these people. It's like we were talking about that one time many weeks ago about how we don't elect the right people.
Yeah, we don't elect because we representatives. We elect leaders,
and then that goes into where we start paying attention towards these little habits and these personal beliefs. And none of that matters.
When we elect people, we elect. Let's face it, we elect strong men, right? So
we want to elect.
If we end up electing Hillary Clinton, it's going to be because Hillary Clinton is a strong man. I know I should say strong woman, but it's true. Yep. She fits that characteristic. She and I think what's going on with liberals are just crying out at this point for any sort of a sign that she's with them, and she's like. Or whatever.
With that confidence, you've got to vote for me. You just don't even even have a choice.
It's you don't have a choice. And I think that there's that sort of that attitude of manifest destiny that she's always had, that I always fucking hated.
So I mean, I guess is that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Vote Hillary, by the way.
Well, yeah, but but I mean, and just on
just bring a paper bag
on a theoretical level. Let's hit the button. A theoretical level, divorce ourselves from the reality of the circumstance, divorce ourselves from having to live through the consequence of that. If you were talking to someone, say we were looking at it's so easy to see when you look back at ancient civilizations doing the same sorts of shit, and say, well, you should have obviously gone this other direction.
Right.
So as we are right now, is trying to divorce ourselves from that. Is it better to feed into that fucking mentality that has led us to this point and vote for her, or is it better to say fuck it, burn it all down, let's see what comes out of the ashes?
Yeah. Here's my thoughts on that. If you don't live in a swing state,
doesn't matter anyway.
And you like Jill Stein, vote for Jill Stein.
Fair enough.
Or Gary Johnson, even though he's fucking retarded and he's a Koch brothers bitch anyway, even though he claims to be a libertarian, which is fucking ridiculous. That man has never been a libertarian a day in his life until he decided that he was going to run as the libertarian candidate.
Everyone's switching their parties.
He's in the fucking pocket of the Koch brothers. He's always been in the pocket of the Koch brothers. He's the cokiest of the Koch brothers, as far as I'm fucking concerned. Nobody seems to be calling him out on... Nobody seems to be calling him out on this, which, fine, he's not going to get that much of a vote anyway.
Right, and that's kind of the assumption is that it is.
And Jill Stein's not going to get the fucking vote.
Right.
So I mean, if you want to vote for your conscience, if you live in a state that always runs red or always runs blue, vote for whoever you want. If you're in a swing state, you gotta vote Hillary, man, because so when I was talking about social movements being they come about because of some sort of a facilitator, right? And they also respond to suppression, right? So one of the really great things about the Bernie Sanders movement is that it started a lot of movement in the right direction. So the way I feel about it right now is that universal health care is going to happen. It's going to happen at some point. It probably won't happen during Hillary's presidency, but
I would think we would at least need to
foster, positivity toward the movements that are moving in that direction. So Hillary's going to be an incrementalist. She's going to expand, which in tiny little bits. To be fair,
is our system is that incremental movement. We have a system that resists that sort of fast change.
Yeah, and so, but there won't be a direct suppression of the liberal movement under a Hillary Clinton presidency. I mean, we'll still get ostracized, and they'll still create myths of the Bernie Bros, like they did during the political campaign, which has now turned out to be, obviously a fabrication of the DNC was that Bernie supporters were misogynistic and all that sort of shit, and which is fucking ridiculous.
Of course.
Because every single person that voted for Bernie Sanders would have also voted for Elizabeth Warren. I believe that.
Right. Well, and so that was kind of my hope, was that Hillary Clinton would take this nomination and kind of throw a bone to fucking Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders or something. Give them a position in cabinet. And to be fair, I don't know that I want Bernie Sanders in cabinet. I think he might do better in...
Well, you can be a part of the Senate and in the cabinet as well, I think.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I think so.
So, don't quote me on that. Well, I was going to say, I want those sorts of people making the laws, but then at the same time, the Senate has been so fucking deadlocked and childish for so long.
Yeah. I totally agree that taking Elizabeth Warren out of the Senate would actually not be super great, but... and I posted something about this on Facebook, and I think people are getting really fucking tired of me at this point. If your main legitimate criticism from your opponents is that you're too cozy with Wall Street, maybe you pick a vice presidential candidate
that isn't so
at least a little bit less.
Yeah, right.
Wall Street.
Well, you want to. I mean, if your goal is to, even if your goal is just to win without fucking having anything to worry about, fucking make that conciliatory gesture.
Right, a gesture would be fucking great.
Just because I think a lot of that Bernie or bust mentality.
And by the way, there's a lot of stuff that Tim Kaine's good on. I can't think of any right now. I had a list of them.
I can't think of Tim Kaine right now, to be quite honest.
He apparently plays the mean harmonica.
I heard about that. I did hear about that. That is the only thing I know about Tim Kaine right now. I've known other things before, but I'm
a little concerned that he's sort of a Catholic and ideologically opposed to abortion, and yet like maintains the through line that government shouldn't interfere.
Right.
That doesn't bother me a whole lot, but from the perspective, again, what we were talking about, like gestures, right?
Right.
If you want to make a gesture, you pick someone who symbolizes, especially for a position that's kind of meaningless, like vice presidency. You pick someone that is kind of the embodiment of a set of ideals that people really that the majority of people are really starting to get behind.
Well, and I mean, to be fair, like that is kind of the idea of our fucking government from the very beginning, was we would pick the losing side as cabinet members to fucking make it seem like, well, and to make it a reality.
Well, it used to be vice president.
Work together.
Like in the beginning, it was vice president was the
guy that lost, and to me,
can you imagine Trump as vice president?
Fucking disaster. I mean, but we have gone like so far like off the rails that it's not even a feasible possibility. But if we would have kept up that balance of like saying, yeah, we have very, very different ideas and diametrically opposed ideas, but like we have to work together, like that fucking kind of gesture. Now we have to do that within a party where we have different aspects of the party tearing itself apart.
Right.
The smart thing to do would be to make that gesture and say,
where you have
hey, we want to work with you too.
Party that's going, ah, and the other party that's going,
Right. So I mean, it's
calm down, and I think that's legitimately part of the frustration that's generated a person like Trump moving to the fore, is that whole like calm down, your frustrations aren't valid, or you're being ridiculous or whatever.
It goes to that it's not just the conservatives, it's not just the xenophobes voting for Brexit, it's not just the people voting for Trump, or even supporting Trump. I mean, like what's that Julian Assange or whatever his name is, WikiLeaks dude, his opinion is that Hillary Clinton is the known quantity of like evil, basically. She's the problem that has led us to this point. Donald Trump is awful, but a wild card. We don't know what the fuck's going to happen with that.
I'm pretty sure that it's going to be fucking terrible, though.
Right. No, and it will be terrible. And I mean, I think his ideal, and I don't know whether this is, obviously don't know the man or anything like that, but my guess would be the hope that it would be so bad that we would just be like, what the fuck? Just happened. And like, this is unacceptable. Fucking no.
Yeah,
we can't do this.
I think that's what Susan Sarandon's been saying.
Right.
But I like to get to the point of my disagreement with that sort of thinking is that there's been this sort of through line in all the stuff that I'm kind of trying to get to today. Is that So, like I've mentioned that like universal health care is going to happen, right?
So the progressive incremental,
and free college. I mean, I heard
some good things about that, like going on between her and Sanders, supposedly,
and the DNC platform, which no one has ever cared about. This year, people cared about, and there's a couple of good things in there. Not everything good in there that we'd want.
But something.
The rejection of TPP is not in there. Apparently behind the scenes there's been a lot of talk between Tim Kaine and Hillary Clinton, both strong TPP supporters previously, but they've kind of like, I guess there's been some talk that they're both like basically going to try to drop it.
Well, I would hope so.
I definitely hope so. But anyway, so I'm getting sidetracked again. So my point is that the only thing that could possibly stop that moving from that momentum
forward,
forward is
to throw it off the rails entirely.
If Trump wins in 2008, because he is going to suppress the Liberal Party, he's going to suppress any liberal actions within Congress. We're going to get nothing done. We're going to be fighting tooth and nail all the way. I mean, and I plan to, like, I talk about voting for Hillary. That doesn't mean you have to fall in line with Hillary, because I fucking certainly am not going to. That's a fight where she at least has to, on some level, acknowledge that I exist. Donald Trump does not.
Fair.
In any way,
that
shape, or form.
That is true. That's a good point.
He does not have to even pretend to be accountable to me. And in fact, the more unaccountable he is to me, the more popular he's probably going to become within his base, and he's probably going to be able to grow his base by demonizing people like me.
No, that is a really good point, and I'm glad that you make that, because I've been literally just on the fence about the whole thing, where like I see both sides of it, where it's just part of me does want to see the fucking thing just burn down and see what happens, but then you're right, there's no forward progression in that mentality. So I think that is a really good point to make. And I guess there's that kind of ideal that, you know, we got all these people worked up and kind of agitated, and they're voting kind of for these massive movements and stuff, and what happens when these things don't actually deliver because the kind of establishment sidetracks those movements.
And there's always,
what happens
especially
next election. But I mean, it looks like at least there's enough, hopefully, shakiness to like the Democratic platform right now, to where Hillary realizes that she's there, but not there by what she thought she was going to be there by. She thought she was going to fucking trounce fucking Bernie Sanders.
She did.
And she very nearly lost. And may have lost if it weren't for some fucking... Well, I'll say she won on a lot of...
From all I've seen of the numbers, she won the popular vote. Okay?
Right. But here's the thing with that. I mean, what is the popular vote when she gets all the coverage for news? What is the popular vote when that is the only option that most people are presented with?
That's true. But how do you police that?
Right. Fair. I'm just saying it's something to where she's certainly not sitting on this stable platform.
I mean, the only way that realistically that you police that, and I think we're kind of starting to. By the way, another really good thing in the past couple of days, superdelegates. So we're reducing the amount of superdelegates by 2/3.
Jesus
So
Christ.
there was originally 700 and some superdelegates. There's now going to be 250, and those 250 are all going to be active members of Congress, and so they're going to be accountable.
That's like a fucking game changer, actually. Because part of the argument against even bothering with
this is the shit that Bernie's been negotiating for over the everybody was like, Bernie needs to endorse Hillary or drop out of the race or whatever, but he was holding out, and it was kind of screaming from the mountaintops at the time, but nobody was really listening.
No, and I mean, I fully respect what was done, and especially if that was managed to be accomplished. Like I respect knowing when to kind of dignifiedly step away, but continue fighting for these things. Using
he has, the momentum. But there's a lot of people that are still really hurt by. I mean, and when there's corruption from the opponent that ends up winning, I mean, it's really difficult to get the people that supported the other side to switch back over. And that's why I'm saying grand gestures really
which she didn't choose to make. Which more than that made gestures to the opposite.
She has made and that's a little unfair because she's made policy gestures, right? So when we talk about the DNC platform and the fact that Bernie Sanders was allowed to put Cornel West on the fucking DNC committee.
Sure.
And people like that were allowed to dictate at least partly what.
But I mean, what is the average person doesn't necessarily see that, or is so used to those sort of promises of platform that don't ever get delivered on anyway.
Yeah, and and
like, what does it matter if she says, "Oh, I'm not into TPP anymore"? I mean,
right?
Fuck, come on.
And that's like, and that's, I think that's a lot of the same problem that you run into when we're talking about like Hillary moving to the left on some policy positions like free college tuition and things like that, which her plan kind of has a little bit of problems that I don't really like. But anyway, I mean, it's like she's moved to the left, right? But like, to me, it feels like Bernie dragged her there kicking and screaming.
Well,
Bernie dragged her there kicking and screaming into making a declaration during the debates that she wasn't going to touch Social Security.
Right.
You know, I mean, these are all like the rhetoric and those commitments, they mean something, but at the same time, it also means that she has been dragged there kicking and screaming, and it, like, that's whenever she tries to make some sort of a gesture to the left, I think it feels exactly that way. It feels like, all right, calm down, I'll do this little measure or whatever there. And like, I think if you really want to get liberals excited about Hillary Clinton, she's going to have to do something bigger than that, and she's going to have to do it in a more heartfelt and sincere way.
I agree.
To make liberals feel like she's on their side.
All right, Hillary, you're on notice. So
you are on notice.
Get on that.
You're also definitely not watching this podcast.
We're trying to help you.
So.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Some fucking slack jaw at the NSA is watching it, but no.
Okay. Settle. Agreed.
Her in particular.
Should we throw out some like buzzwords like terrorism and stuff? See if that gets more attention.
Sure. Safe spaces.
What's I got nothing. Terrorism was my throwaway. Anyway,
speaking of safe spaces, Milo Yiannopoulos officially banned for life from Twitter. Some people are really excited about that. Some people are really upset about that. My don't give a fuck game is still going strong.
Nice. I'm glad to have you reporting on that. We'll check back in with you in a few months and see if you're still on the same page.
I don't think it's the end of the world. I also don't think it's really that great. I don't fucking care what Twitter decides to do with its business decisions. In fact, the fewer people that use Twitter, I think the better this world is going to be.
I can only agree with you on that. Yep. You cannot have a conversation in 140 characters. God damn it.
Twitter is the screaming, raving id of the United States. Yep. And that's
the word. Is that copyright? That's probably copyright.
Copyright. July 20.
I was just doing
19.
Sure.
I almost called this 19 something or other.
It feels
1916.
Like it feels like
it does feel a little 1916ish. Yep. You got anything else you want to throw in?
I'm pretty good actually. I think that.
Trump and Russia.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I don't
think there's actually any evidence of that whatsoever.
Right. With the only thing
I think it's an interesting theory
to be said is just Trump saying Russia go after her emails. That's the only evidence that I've seen. Is just Trump verbally saying.
Has there been that much?
Yeah. Trump went to basically say, Russia, if you had anything to do with that, go ahead and keep digging. We need to find those emails or something along those lines.
Like after the fact.
So it wasn't something where it was anything to do before, and it was just him commenting on that. I read something about like one of the CIA directors talking about just the kind of batshit crazy that is, though, to have like a nominee for president asking for like another country to interfere with their own politics.
I thought I heard something like either today or yesterday where more emails from the DNC were leaked where they were talking about fabricating the link between Trump and Russia.
Oh, that's hilarious. That would be hilarious if that was true.
I can't put anything past them. I mean, they're like... whoever died in the first season of Game of Thrones. Like,
Sure. Could be anything.
The amount of ineptitude in their corruption on the part of the Democratic Party and the Democratic National Convention is astounding.
Fair enough.
We can't even manage a good scandal, like a well-organized scandal.
I will definitely have to check into that. I haven't heard anything specifically about that. As far as the direct connection, I think it's loose at best. It's maybe a mild admiration for each other, but that's about it, as far as I can tell. So but it's worth keeping an eye on, because it is kind of concerning to say, like, to just have someone even bring that up, like, that is a normal thing to say now in American politics is, hey, other country, please come in and interfere with our politics. Like, I mean, I'm sure they did it before. It's just, we never had, like, someone openly say, come on and help me, like, hack this server so we can trash my opponent. That's interesting world we're going into, I guess. So. Yeah.
And with that, I guess we're going to go ahead and end this one. Go ahead and check us out on Facebook, where we're the Clickbait Podcast. Check us out on Twitter, where we are at Clickbait Pod. Stay frosty, people, and remember, whenever you go into that voting booth, to hit Hillary and drag the body through the park.
I agree with that. Yeah, I'm going with it.